Can I confess something to you guys? Okay, all right. So, when I was in elementary school, I used to lie and say I was Jamaican. Research on the foods, made up cousins. I think at one point I even tried to fake an accent as well. Completely butchered it, by the way. See, I had zero connection to the culture, but I was committed. Now, I definitely saw the mental question marks going off in the audience, so let me explain. You see, I grew up in an area where there were predominantly no African Americans. And the message, sometimes said out loud, sometimes just implied, was that African Americans didn't really have culture. I mean, yeah, we had Tupac and soul food, but in their eyes, we didn't have anything that was real, something that sticks for generations to come. It's almost as if the perception of us was stranded in time, back to when our original African ancestry was erased, before we created our own roots here in America. And when you're the only one, you start to absorb how people talk about you, even when they're not talking to you. So I thought, well, hey, if I can't be seen that way for who I am, then I'll just take someone else's cool. Simple. It sounds completely ridiculous, and I laugh every time I remember this. But let's be honest. Haven't we all done something like this before? Okay, I mean, you probably didn't put on a whole Rasta accent, but I'm 1,000% sure that everyone in this room has had an experience where we tried to fit in, tried to mimic what was getting the laughs, the likes, the approval, tried to be cool. You know, cool is such an interesting word. It encapsulates so many things at once: style, ease, confidence, approval. One of the best examples of a slang term, a term of endearment. Though I don't exactly remember how cool evolved to be that way, though. I mean, think about it. Cool, it just means cold. So, how did we go from something cold to something desirable? Meh, it'll come back to me. Anyways, we've all been kids or adults trying to survive school, social media, or even a corporate office. And sometimes that survival instinct we feel in those spaces means shapeshifting, copying what's popular. And one of the easiest ways to copy what's popular is through language. Think about it. We hear a viral phrase online, it sounds pretty catchy, and suddenly everyone's saying it. No one stops to ask, where did this come from? We just hit copy, paste, and we keep scrolling. But here's where that gets tricky. Some people get praised for sounding trendy, while others get penalized for sounding like themselves. And that brings me to this. AAVE, formerly known as African American Vernacular English. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't, but chances are you've used it. Even if you didn't know That's what it was. Here are some common AAVE phrases. Now, before I give you the definition of these phrases, I want to use them in a sentence so you guys can get a feel for the meaning, okay? Oh, excuse me. I have to take this. Hello? Oh, yeah, girl. I'm still coming to the function. Yeah, what's good? You know, child, when the child is T, but the finna is gag, like, sis, I'm dead. Like, sis, I'm dead as a child. Yeah, but of course I'm still coming to the function. Yeah, you gonna finna catch me. All right, I'll talk to you later. All right, bye. Now, some of you are familiar with this. Others just had a stroke. And yeah, maybe it did sound a little silly. Maybe a little inappropriate, or just straight dumb. Here's the thing. You'd be right. Because that sentence I just said makes no sense. Let's take a look. See, finna is a word that expresses intent. So, I'm finna eat means I'm going to eat. And when you pair it with gonna or gun, which means the same thing, the sentence falls apart. It's like saying, I'm going to eat. Huh? Those words don't go together like that. But for some reason, that's how they're perceived. And that's what happens when a language gets stripped of its context, its culture, and its creators, and then handed over to the mainstream. See, AAVE is a dialect cultivated within the Black community for centuries. But due to the rise of social media, corporate branding, and pop culture in general, it gets distorted in places that erase the intention and the intelligence of its native speakers. And I'm not exaggerating. That sentence I said earlier, it's real. It's a lyric by a song from one of the biggest girl groups in the world right now, Blackpink. I know y'all know who Blackpink is. The song that the line was featured in garnered 1.6 billion streams. It's been blasted in stadiums, quoted online, repeated by fans who might have never even met a Black American. And that's the version of AAVE they're learning. Not as a dialect, but as an aesthetic, a vibe, a meme. And when AAVE gets misrepresented like that, with no credit or context, it starts to look like nonsense. And when it starts to look like nonsense, it becomes easier to mock than to respect. And when it becomes easier to mock, they stop seeing the people behind it as intelligent. Now I know you're thinking, oh my God, here you go. He got up here just to talk about a lyric. It's not that deep. But language is never just language. It's tied to culture, to identity, to power. And the way we treat someone's language usually reflects how we treat them socially and systemically. That's why pop stars like Miley Cyrus and Ariana Grande can use AAVE and get critically acclaimed albums and record-breaking sales for artistic innovation, while others get told they sound uneducated or unprofessional for using their own dialect. mean, think about it. What happens when you speak slang in a classroom? Would you do it for a job interview? What about for an esteemed academic paper? No, right? For a lot of Black kids, that kind of stigma creates an environment where tone switching isn't optional. It's survival. They grow up learning 2 languages at once. The one they speak at home with their families, and the one that'll get them a job. So while the internet continuously borrows from AAVE, the people who speak it fluently still get marked down, judged harshly, or told to speak properly. So even though AAVE is found everywhere, it still feels like it doesn't belong everywhere. Now let me set this as a disclaimer. I don't think everyone who has misused AAVE before is racist. Quite the contrary. A lot of the time, it's not coming from hate, it's coming from hype. Someone hears a viral song in anything, and it has a phrase in it that they like, and they're just saying it to sound cool. And I get that, because I've been there too. But here's the thing. Wanting to sound cool does not erase the fact that this language means something. That it has roots, rules, structure, context. And when people use it without understanding where it comes from, under the guise of borrowing it, they're not just using it. They're flattening it, stripping it of the community that built it, diluting the meaning so much that it becomes a punchline instead of a proud expression of culture. But this is what nobody tells you. AAVE isn't just cool. It's cool personified, literally. Oh, and that reminds me. Earlier, I said I couldn't remember where the word cool came from. Well, turns out that too is AAVE. The word itself, a word that defines what's current, stylish, and desirable, traces back to Black speech. And it's not the only one, like literally. Yep. Keep going. Yep. Oh, that one I didn't even know. I know y'all didn't know. I didn't know. Yep, keep going. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. That one I didn't know either. Banjo. All of this. And cool is just the tip of the iceberg. So maybe the question wasn't where did cool come from? No. Maybe it's why is the origin forgotten the second it leaves our mouths? And that's just one example. See, AAVE, it's in your favorite TikTok audios. It's in your texts, your memes, your advertisements. Like, no, seriously, like, it's everywhere. Even when you don't realize it. And that's the problem. Because if you don't know it's AAVE, then you don't know who to credit. And if you don't know who to credit, you don't know who's being erased. And you might miss the chance to realize that this thing you thought was just slang is actually a sign that this culture is beautiful, valid, and heard. For a long time, I thought that AAVE was something to be embarrassed about. I thought that it was wrong, that I was cultureless, that this was something I had to shed out in an effort to mature. But I was wrong. See, AAVE isn't a lack of culture. It's an abundance of it. That's why it keeps evolving, innovating, thriving. No matter how many times people try to rebrand or polish it away. It will never sink under pressure because it'll just reinvent. But not everyone gets or wants that chance. Some people aren't trying to reinvent themselves to survive. They're just trying to hold on to what they've built. The United Nations notes that every 2 weeks, an indigenous language dies. That's a whole worldview, a way of storytelling, just gone. And it's not just about the words, no. It's about systems that never gave these communities the chance to survive. That didn't happen by accident. English became the standard through force, through colonization, through boarding schools, through deep societal disgust for anything that didn't sound proper. And that language and that stigma, it's not over. It's still in our schools where kids are told not to speak the way their families do. It's still in our workplaces where polished becomes code for not like you. And when we set standard English as the only way to be seen or respected, we're not just judging grammar. We're deciding who gets to belong, who gets to be cool. So I wonder, how many kids still feel the way I used to? How many of them are still shrinking themselves, trading in their way their family talks for a version that fits someone else's comfort zone? And what would the world look like when we keep erasing culture? What if we took the K-pop and said, actually, that would sound way better if it was in English. Your language is too distracting. What if we took the matcha lattes and the boba tea and the sushi and turned them into household staples while disregarding the small businesses that hold its authenticity? How are we supposed to celebrate our differences when we keep disregarding the differences? See, AAVE, or any other culture for that matter, doesn't need permission to be valid. No. They are living, breathing expressions of culture that will remain no matter anyone's control. But if we want to build a better future, one where people aren't punished for the culture they carry, then it's time we start talking about how to stop borrowing without understanding. So let's start that conversation. And this time, keep us in it. Thank you.